I'm the Movie Geek, and I'm about to go and see the midnight showing of Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I don't know much about this film, only what I've read, and that isn't much. I know the cast. It stars Felicity Jones as Jyn Erso, Mads Mikkelsen as her father, Galen Erso, who is the designer of the Death Star. I really don't know much about this film. I've intentionally gone out of my way to only watch the trailers once, and those trailers look awesome. That first trailer, when you saw the vast size of the Death Star against the Star Destroyers, it blew my mind. It was very, very good, and it just made the Death Star look threatening again. I seriously don't know much about this film. It's really hard to do a sort of pre-review when you don't know much about it. I should have done some homework maybe, but yeah, it looks nice. It's supposed to be completely different, away from the space opera theme or feel that the original Star Wars films have. It's supposed to be a war film set in the Star Wars universe, which I really like the idea of, because we're actually going to get some war in this Star Wars. I'm hoping that this film turns out really well, so we'll see what happens. I'm almost there now. Well, I've seen it. Rogue One, Star Wars story. After watching Rogue One, I was full of enthusiasm. I even proclaimed it to be a more interesting story than The Force Awakens. And it is. It is a fast-paced story which has done what it set out to do. It told the story of the rebels who stole the Death Star plans and transmitted them to Princess Leia at the beginning of A New Hope. We follow Jyn Erso as she struggles with being so full of rage about having grown up an orphan, to being so enraged with hate that she calmly talks a ragtag group of fighters to disobey orders and attempt to steal the plans from a planet that is entirely sealed off by a force field. Jyn Erso is a character that has the most defined backstory, but when your father is the designer of the Death Star's main weapon, then you are afforded the luxury of a backstory. Felicity Jones plays Jyn, and overall she portrays Jyn's journey well. We follow Jyn as she is freed from the Imperial prison and taken to the leaders of the rebellion, Mon Mothma and Jimmy Smits. She reluctantly joins Cassian Andor, played by Diego Luna, and K2SO, played by Alan Tudyk, as they travel to Jeddah to retrieve information from Forrest Whitaker's character, Saw Gerrera. This information is from Bodhi Rook, a turncoat Imperial pilot sent by Jyn's father, Galen Erso, played by Mads Mikkelsen. On Jeddah, they get caught up in a fight between the rebels and the Empire. They are saved by Donnie Yen's Chirrut Imwe and Yang Wen's Baze Malbus. Here we find the second standout character. I'll get to the first later. Chirrut Imwe is a blind warrior who believes completely in the Force, that we see him inexplicably get out of scrapes whilst chanting. He displays a lot of Jedi intuition and fights as though he is a Jedi, but he isn't one. The characterization stood out to me because you get the sense that he should have been more powerful than he was. He seemed to sense what the others were thinking, or what they were going to do. In my eyes, he stood out. He also has one of the biggest laughs in the film, when he and the others are taken away to Saw Gerrera's secret base, blindfolded. Now we come to the point I felt was flawed. First we have Rook taken prisoner by Gerrera and tortured by a big tentacled beast. That was to read his mind. It felt a little out of place, as much as the Rathars did in The Force Awakens. It seemed as though each new Star Wars film has to have a creature with tentacles in it. It could have been cut, I didn't think we needed it. Then we get the next breadcrumb. A message from Jyn's father, warning about the Death Star, and that he has implemented a failsafe, I wonder what that is, that could be used to destroy the space station before it's too late. The breadcrumb leads the group to an Imperial research facility where her father is being held. Cassian has orders to kill Galen, but he doesn't go through with it, and Galen and Jyn are reunited briefly. This spurs Jyn and the rest to fight against both the Empire and the Rebellion and go to the planet Scarif in a stolen Imperial ship. This leads to the biggest set piece of the film, the attack on the databank. This is where the film becomes a war film that was promised. A group of rebels, along with Chirrut Imwe, Bodhi Rook, Baze Malbus, attempt to distract the Imperial forces so that Jyn, Cassian, and K2SO can break into the databank and steal the plans. There are homages to Return of the Jedi here, I feel, within this part of the film, where we see the rebels try and attack the databank. And I think there's also an homage to A New Hope when K2SO is communicating with Jyn and Cassian through the intercom. There is a fake out death scene. We are shown Cassian fall to his potential death. Jyn climbs to the top of the tower and sends the signal as the shield generator fails due to a space attack going on above. For those who have seen the film, I have omitted a major character. Orson Krennic, the director of Advanced Weapons, played by Ben Mendelsohn. In my opinion, he had the best character. Hungry for power, desperate for recognition from both Vader and the Emperor, but constantly thwarted by Grand Moff Tarkin, whom seems to enjoy getting in Krennic's way. You actually felt for him, despite him being completely despicable and the main reason for Jyn to be in the situation that she's in. As a standalone film, Rogue One is brilliant, a fun story that's entertaining, but there are some things that don't seem to sit right. Firstly, Darth Vader has a scene at the end where he is literally chasing the Death Star plans down a corridor. The rebels are passing it hand to hand, and Vader is cutting them all down with his lightsaber. It is a brilliant scene. It made Vader feel imposing and threatening again. It gave him edge that was severely lacking in the prequels. But despite this being a prequel, it ends moments before A New Hope begins, and because of this, the difference in Vader seems massive. Firstly, he goes from taking down rebels with his lightsaber to sending stormtroopers into Leia's ship at the beginning of A New Hope. Also, the way he moves and uses the Force is completely different from the original movies. He's fast and takes down his enemies without blinking. Well, I'd assume. It makes his fight with Obi-Wan Kenobi in The New Hope seem really slow. When making these films, they needed to make sure that the continuity marries up. And overall it does. It's just a little bit jarring when you see Darth Vader move the way he moves, and then in A New Hope he's completely different. Another point is that they use CGI to bring Peter Cushing back from the dead, and Carrie Fisher to make her look young again. These points at first seem really good, and the voice actor playing Tarkin had Cushing's voice down extremely well. But it does take you out of the film, as the audience is watching a cartoon face. I found Leia's CGI much worse than Tarkin's, but I suppose they wanted a scene showing exactly how Leia got the plans. They have to show it being given and put into her hands. The main characters were all good, and it felt as though they all had something to do. They weren't just add-ons for the sake of it. Their ultimate fates were telegraphed from the initial premise of the film. How could they survive what they were doing? They couldn't, and each member of Rogue One had a good end, and despite seeing it coming, you actually felt for them each time. In summary, Rogue One was an enjoyable film. I was smiling upon leaving it. As said, the ending was obvious, but that's what happens when you make a prequel set to end 10 minutes before A New Hope begins, for the sole reason to fix one plot hole in A New Hope. Obviously that plot hole was the hole that led to the reactor that Luke fires into and destroys the Death Star. Jin's dad put that in there while he was rebelling against the Empire. A good, enjoyable film, but it does have flaws. 7 Death Stars out of 10. I'm the Movie Geek. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to.